Welcome to the Cybersecurity Hub. I am your host and editor, Seth Adler. We're here at the EMEA Summit. We've got a great session to begin, IoT and Industrial Network Security, with my friend Mohamad Mahjoub. This whole summit has a tremendous amount of information, all packed into just a few sessions on moving forward from where we are. We have had an interesting year this year, and these folks that we've got lined up to speak take that into account, share with you what they have done in some instances to deal with this year and to prepare for next year. So it is a whole new world as far as cybersecurity, and it's a whole new world as far as IoT. We're going to turn to a conversation that I had with Mohamad, and then we'll come back for some live Q&A. All right, so we've got Mohamad Mahjoub from Veolia, Middle East. Mohamad, thanks so much for giving us some time.
Thank you, Seth, for this opportunity.
Industrial networks, cyber security. This is a touch different, right? Unless you are a part of an industrial organization, you don't know, right? So let's talk about the challenges of operational technology and industrial networks themselves. Let's begin with maybe a little bit of an introduction of Veolia, just in case folks aren't familiar with the company. Yeah?
Sure. Thank you, Seth. Again, just a little introduction about myself. My name is Mohamad Mahjoub. I'm the CISO here for Veolia, Middle East. We have operations all over the region. Veolia actually is a multinational company, French-based company, but we have operations all over the world. We specialize in water technology, so mainly wastewater treatment, water desalination. We have some energy section as well, and we have a couple of JVs for facilities management. But our core business is mainly water technologies and utilities. So here in the Middle East, we operate in many countries like UAE, Saudi, Kuwait, Oman, Bahrain, etc. And we have plants all over the place. We'll talk now about the challenges, but actually my role is to ensure the security of IT and OT for all the ecosystem here in the Middle East.
And so when I speak to an executive like you, I'm used to talking about IT, and we'll actually get to that towards the end of our conversation.
Yeah.
What are the specific challenges with OT, operational technology, specifically within that industrial network?
Well, Seth, and the audience, of course, it is like totally different. When we talk about IT, we mainly talk about mainly the risks are in delay of operations. So whatever might happen, the operations might be delayed, right? So this is the ultimate risk, or you might lose some data that might impact your business or the image of your business, etc. But when you're talking about ICS, the risks are really different. The risks are mainly concerning human life loss. So this is really something very important for us to consider. The risks might as well involve environmental impact. They might have regulatory consequences as well. So if we can start with some differentiation between the IT, the traditional IT that we know, and the OT. Actually, OT is like a booming world these days. It's a buzzword, but the technology behind that is really old. In our plants, we have like small devices with minimal resources, minimal memory and minimal computing resources. Those devices are there, like have been working and functioning for a couple of years, and security was not taken into consideration while building those devices. Versus the IT world, where you have systems and unlimited resources in terms of computing power and memory. In the ICS, you really care about the network in terms of like when delays are not acceptable, communication is really real time. You cannot accept like non-real-time communication with your PLCs and sensors. Meanwhile, in the IT world, you can like have some threshold of acceptability in these terms under the network. In ICS, again, as I said, we focus on human safety. So human safety first, then security. Meanwhile, in the IT world, it's the triad. So it's the confidentiality, integrity, and availability of data. So as you can see, we counter them from different angles, IT and ICS. Coming as well to de facto things that we face is the utilization of various protocols. If you look at it from the global perspective, each plant might operate in a different protocol. In the industrial world, we have many protocols, old protocols, not new, like Modbus, Profibus, BACnet, OPC Classic, and OPC-DA. Meanwhile, in the IT world, usually it's a standard protocol. And in many cases, it's like a standard environment, like you're using Windows with some Linux machines or the opposite. But in the ICS world, you have heterogeneous environments. You have various vendors, different vendors. So the challenges are different. In the IT world, for example, you can do change management easily, right? Just plan the change, do risk assessment, and plan the outage time, and you implement the change. But from the IT perspective, this change is sometimes impossible because it's real time and really need to be scheduled in advance and scheduled carefully. One last thing I want to highlight about the difference before we go into the challenges that we face is the lifetime of the components in IT and OT. Usually in IT, the lifetime of machines like servers, switches, hardware is from 3 to 5 years. As for OT environment, the industrial networks, usually the lifespan is much bigger. We're talking here about 20 to 30 years. So as you can see, it's like we need to approach IT and OT world from different angles.
Yeah, completely different angles. It's night and day. It's two different things completely.
Exactly.
You know, you said we'll talk about the challenges. Let's talk about those challenges. You basically got your brand new car and your 25-year-old car, and you've got to service them both, right?
Exactly. So this 25-year-old car is now the big talk of mainly everyone, right?
Yeah.
So and the main challenge here is the convergence of these two networks. You see that they are totally different. They operate in different protocols, different vendors, but the ultimate thing is to converge these networks. So what's happening recently is the convergence between the IT and the OT world. So us as CISO, security professionals, even the business would like to see a common dashboard or a single visibility to all its networks, whether it's in IT or OT. So when you converge these networks, you will be facing lots of challenges due to the facts that we've listed before. Challenges come in different forms. Challenges will come from the corporate networks, like the usual challenges that we face, like USBs with malware, phishing attacks. These days, like some hackers are able to compromise ICS network from a single email. Phished employee, using some social engineering techniques, you're able to go into the industrial network. So it's really scary. So imagine from a single email, you can jump into the industrial network. The traditional threats that come from the enterprise or IT networks apply totally to the OT and ICS world. On top of that, we have the industrial specific risks. So recently, I'm sure that you've heard of the Ripple 20 vulnerabilities. So Ripple 20 vulnerabilities are a list of 19 vulnerabilities that have been discovered by a company called JSOF. And, you know, this company, JSOF, came to know that many of these industrial machines, or like if you're talking about PLCs, RTUs, switches, especially the modular ones. They implement a lightweight TCP/IP stack. It's from a company called Trek. So it has been there in the market for many years, and it turns out that this lightweight TCP/IP stack is full of vulnerabilities. They discovered 19 vulnerabilities, of which 4 are of high and critical classification that can lead to memory leaks, data leaks, etc. So imagine now, these devices that are there all over the planet have these vulnerabilities. So now we need to deal with specific type of vulnerabilities like the Ripple 20s, in addition to the classic vulnerabilities and threats coming from the IT world.
Because when you converge these industrial and enterprise networks, all of a sudden you're opened up to all of this IoT, right? And that's why it's the term of the day. You're opening yourself up to all of these new vulnerabilities because you're now connected to the enterprise network. Am I getting
Absolutely.
that right?
Absolutely. To be honest, previously, a couple of years back, the plants were like individual plants, disconnected, air-gapped. They're not talking to any other plants or any other cloud providers. But now the world is changing. You need to have centralized view. You need to have remote access, especially after the COVID situation that's changed a lot of how businesses are operating. So now you need remote access to your plants. For that, you will install IoT devices in your plants. So again, the industrial network is mainly old devices that have been running for many years. But now, due to the convergence and due to the remote working scenarios, we are putting some IoT devices to maintain remote access, to do some advanced analytics, for example, like condition-based maintenance, to predict the failure of some components, etc. So these technologies, they require IoT devices to be plugged in certain locations within the plant. So as you can see, the plant is opening up. Networks are converging, thus many threats and vulnerabilities are being seen day by day. That's on top of the trivial threats that come from hacktivists, like who want to attack companies, big companies especially, and the other types of attacks that go beyond that, such as espionage, etc. I will not cover them here, but mainly, as you can see, it's like traditional threats versus the new threats.
So you used the word trivial, but then you updated it to traditional. Let's dive in there, because all the while, we've been talking a lot about how you're bringing your plants online and how, that opens up a tremendous amount of vulnerability. During the day, you're also doing what every CISO is doing and dealing with those traditional threats. Let's dive in, if you don't mind, on what's on your desk right now. What are you paying attention to as far as those traditional threats?
Well, actually, it's the daily bread of every CISO, like the governance part and the management part of security. For me as well, I like to go hands-on many times. So I'm not like just the CISO guy who's just there at like targeting or tackling things at a high level. I'd like to go hands-on, see what's going on within the implementation of the project, test some use cases myself. So to be honest, many things are going there in the spectrum of what's going on. We're testing with new technologies, especially in security, of course, like AI, machine learning. We're trying to implement those smart new technologies, and that will help support our business and boost it forward. Again, in addition to the regular governance jobs, on top of that, the core of our business is to perform risk assessment and vulnerability assessment. For that, we use many standards that regulate the industry, especially the ISA and the NIST standard, on top of the ISO 27001 standard. So actually, we would try to benefit from all of these standards, getting the bits and pieces from here and there, in order to make sure that security is really in place.
As far as standards, and your compliance with law and the protocols that have been set for operational technology, it sounds like there's a lot of rules, but they don't necessarily overlap. What is the difference, if you will, or how do you kind of dovetail those two worlds of making sure that you're up to date on protocols, up to date on governance, making sure that you're compliant? That sounds like, that could be your job all day long alone. I'm sure you've got maybe somebody on the team that deals with specifically that. But can you dive in on the differences and the similarities between governance and compliance and protocols of the industrial world and the enterprise world?
Yeah. Well, actually, the regulation usually comes from local authorities in each country. Mm-hmm. Here I'm based in Dubai, so here we have some industrial control system regulations, of course. But at the end of the day, all of these regulations are based on some standards. Standards, as you know, some guides, some security controls that you put in place to make sure that you're abiding by certain like a framework. Here in the area, to be honest, it's I can say that we have a couple of good standards when it comes to regulation, especially in Saudi Arabia, in Oman, and in UAE. So we're seeing recently the authority are coming up with regulations, and to be honest, we were being audited recently. So that a couple of years back, this wasn't the case. Now we're getting audits from the government. We're sitting with external auditors, and obviously what they have on the table is based on the standards that are related to ICS. The ones that I mentioned, the NIST 800-82, the ISA 62443, and the ISO 27001.
So those are specific, and thank you. And you mentioned the region. How do you think the Middle East compares to Europe, compares to Africa, compares to the other regions around the world, as far as governance, as far as standards, as far as protocols, as far as regulation, as far as compliance in general?
Yeah, I can say that, of course, North America is very much advanced. All the standards that I've mentioned are mainly coming from there. I can say that Europe is mature as well. Middle East is in the right direction. It's catching up. I have no idea, to be honest, about other areas such as Africa or Latin America. But from our perspective, I am really happy to see that the area here is catching up. Cybersecurity is being taken seriously. Here in Dubai now, the government has come up with something called security or cybersecurity index. So this is the first in the world here in where they score governmental entities. They give them a score based on the maturity of the processes and the safety and the security of their controls. So actually, as you can see, it's being taken very serious here. And of course, ICS industry is within the scope of these indices.
Yeah. Why do you think, beyond the obvious, there is more and more of a focus, and the seriousness of how we're paying attention to this has been amplified so much?
Well, because we've seen serious attacks, and we've seen serious breaches. We've seen companies losing money, companies' images being torn off. So, of course, based on these facts, companies and governments are taking the cybersecurity more and more seriously.
Excellent. And thank you for that. Just on the way out here, one piece of advice for other CISOs that are at industrial companies that are having to converge industrial and enterprise networks. What would your advice be to colleagues that have a similar remit to you?
To be honest, it wasn't easy to come from an IT world and be exposed to the OT world. I think I'm really lucky to have that. I'm really lucky to be working here. My company provided a lot to me in terms of training, in terms of exposure. So I advise peers working in this industry to invest in themselves, invest in themselves and learning, learning more and more about this world, because this is the future.
Interesting. Why do you say this is the future? Just out of interest, because of the IoT implications and ramifications?
Yeah, now you're hearing a lot about IoT, and you'll be hearing more and more about IoT when 5G is implemented throughout the world. So,
exactly.
Ubiquitous connectivity. Yeah, it's the future, as I said.
Perfect. Mohamad, thank you so much. Let's see what the community has to say.
Awesome. Thank you, Seth. Thank you.
Yes, let's see what the community has to say. Mohamad joins us again live. And I don't know if you noticed, we switched beards, Mohamad, from last moment to now. So let's pick up where we just left off, because when I was telling my friends in the cybersecurity community about this session, one of them came back to me and said, well, we're all kind of doing what Mohamad is doing, in that our old infrastructure is our old infrastructure as of March 2020, and our new infrastructure is completely different. And so we have to be doing, the gluing together and the taping that Mohamad's doing. What are your thoughts on the fact that global corporate enterprise, OT or otherwise, is basically having the same conversation?
Yeah, actually, it's a challenge that everybody in the IT and OT world is dealing with. We have these old equipments; they are there. You cannot just wake up one day and decide I want to get rid of all of these. It requires a huge investment, so you have to be up to the challenge. Again, as I said before, it's about convergence. So you have to manage the risks that are coming from the IT world, along with the risks that are coming from the OT world. If I can mention here something interesting that we're doing recently, as you know, we have lots of plants in the area, they're disconnected. So now we're trying to implement a system that connects all these plants. Will give me one dashboard that will present all the IT and OT risks and vulnerabilities in just one view. It's actually really interesting. We're having a partnership with a company that's helping us a lot in this field.
Can you dive in? You don't necessarily have to tell us who the partner is, but can you take us through a little bit more about the partnership so that we understand what the value is?
Actually, when you go to the market, you'll see lots of competing vendors. I'm not here to pitch for any vendor, but some of the vendors are Nozomi, Tenable. Some of the vendors offer AI on top of these solutions, such as Darktrace. So Darktrace tells you that, okay, we will just plug and play this machine in your plant, and it will automatically learn about your infrastructure, your protocols. It will do probes and scans to your network. Solutions like in that direction. We have been doing some POCs, trying to compare solutions, and at the end of the day, we decided to go with one of these vendors that I've just mentioned. And to be honest, the benefits that we're seeing are huge.
Now, you decided to go with one of those vendors. Thank you very much. This brings us into the next part of the conversation, which is around budget, right? So you've got to do everything from soup to nuts. I'm sure that your budget situation looks like many others that we're not this is not a wonderful, frothy time in global corporate enterprise. So you had to make some choices. Number one, on automation, on selecting that solution. Can you also share with us what you might have either had to not spend on, or how you were able to argue for that piece of budget, or if it was just in the budget and I had the budget to do it, so I did it. Do you mind sharing that?
Well, I'll tell you my point of view regarding that.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, you're exposed, right?
Yes.
So this is a fact. This is a fact. Yes. So if you bring that use case to the management, along with all the challenges and the impacts that might take place after a serious breach, the impacts are financial. Sometimes they will affect the brand equity, etc. So actually, you have two solutions here from the management perspective. They either will invest in a human workforce, or they will leverage technology and leverage automation. Not to say like to get rid of human workforce, but to make operations more efficient. So we're trying to get the best of the two worlds. We're trying to expand our team, along with taking advantage of what solutions, smart solutions such as AI, machine learning, deep learning has to offer us. Because at the end of the day, you cannot monitor what's happening in your environment 24/7. You need to leverage these technologies.
But you set up only two outcomes as far as senior level management, which is to invest in people or to invest in machines. Unfortunately, there is another group of people that I'm speaking to who also share the fact that senior level management is offering a third outcome, which is you may not have any more budget, no matter if it is for humans or for machines. So in all seriousness, though, if you were in that position of that person, you've just kind of eloquently shared, listen, you got to make the business case, and without the business case, you're not going to get the money. So it's just not magically thrown at you. We take that point and thank you for making it. But if the folks still aren't getting it, that you're trying to kind of get that budget from, listen, we're exposed. We got to do something about it. How might you, what else might you add if they're saying, listen, you got to cut people, and I'm sorry, we don't have any more money for solutions either?
Well, Seth, it's part of the challenges CISO face.
Right.
I've been there before. Here, the setup of Veolia Middle East is complex. So we have different joint ventures. So I don't have to talk with one committee of upper management. No. For each joint venture, I have to direct my speech towards different committees. It's not utopia. I managed to present my business case for many of these joint ventures, and I was able to secure the budget. But again, this is life. For some of the other joint ventures, I was not able to secure the budget. So as a backup plan, we're doing things the old way, the traditional way. Trying to implement controls, trying to do some hands-on controls and put some controls in place. But unfortunately, this is time-consuming, and I'll just try again to bring my business case, and hopefully we'll get an approval soon.
There we go. If you fail, try again. We had talked about standards in the body of the thing, and it occurs to me that most of the standards have to do with privacy. Now, and you were mentioning, hey, there are manufacturing standards that are in place. When do you think that the worlds of privacy and those manufacturing standards kind of collide, and they may already have, right?
To be honest,
ISO with GDPR is my point, right?
To be honest, organizations these days are operating in complex regulatory environments. It is of lots of added value, to be honest. You have many standards, frameworks, regulations, It depends on the country that you're coming from. But we have a lot like ISOs, PCI, HIPAA, SOX. On top of that, you have GDPR. So we, as a French company, we have to abide by GDPR. It's within our fabric. It adds a lot of benefits, especially when it comes to the cost, to the trust you're giving to the clients and the customers. But on top of that, I really believe that we need to have another level on top of that, which is the internal awareness of the employees, of our users. Because they always look at security as a term that is blocking anything that has to do with digital transformation, with acceleration, etc. But to be honest, it's a business enabler. And having these gaps within people, people skill, of course, really exposes the company. So on top of the regulations, a layer that you have, you need to add security awareness level for all your employees.
Yeah, I mean, we do a report every 6 months that's survey-based and asks similar questions. And we have been asking about security awareness for a number of years now, and that is always the highest ranked objective. Now, having said that, I still have conversations like I'm having with you in that folks aren't necessarily aware. So I'm now speaking with others who are talking about security consciousness, meaning, more than awareness campaigns, more than emails going out, more than, even penetration tests, is getting into the hearts and minds, if you will, of your corporate employees, because who's on the security team, who's on the cybersecurity team, how many employees do you have, right? Everybody is. And just ratcheting up that kind of understanding so that it's not just awareness, that it's in their consciousness. Now, that's just a bunch of words. Of course, in my title is editor, but what are your thoughts on kind of, putting the foot down on the pedal in terms of security awareness to yes, we are not saying no anymore. We've gone from the Department of No, N-O, to the Department of No, K-N-O-W. So that's number one. And now we know that you're aware, but now we need you to be conscious. We need you to be actually with us,
Based on my experience, people don't care. Seriously. And this is a sad fact. So they don't care about cybersecurity until they get breached on a personal email by clicking the wrong link, etc. And unfortunately, this applies to single person, and this applies to companies. So as part of the CISO role is to change this culture. This is challenging. This is why I believe that physical contact with our staff is really more important than just sending out random emails here and there. Talking about that, we have a full awareness program in place. We do a couple of webinars per year. We try to do physical presentations to our staff. Of course, this was before this damn COVID thing. Yeah. We try to simulate phishing attacks. We also try to show our staff actual hacking and actual attacks. For example, we try to use fake access points and demonstrate that, okay, fine, I'm authenticating to fake access point. What can hackers do after you authenticate to fake access point? So seeing is believing. So we're tackling the awareness program from different angles, eventually to change the culture and change the mindset. So hopefully it's a long and bumpy road, but I believe that eventually we'll get there.
Yeah, no, and that key point there, seeing is believing. If this happens, here's what we see back here, by the way. Here's the data that can be exfiltrated because of your clicking, exactly. Just actually taking them through it. Fantastic. Mohamad, I very much appreciate your time here, your time throughout, and getting to know you a little bit.
My pleasure.
Yeah, we will definitely see you down the line. So appreciate that. Before we go, though, I want to make sure folks know that the next session up at the top of the hour is how to disrupt adversaries with security intelligence. It's Noor Fatin, who is the from Recorded Future, talking about security intelligence, because how can you do it if you don't have intelligence, right? You just said that you went out and you got some intelligence software that is brand new and you're using. So again, Mohamad, thank you so much. Really appreciate your time, and I can't wait to see you down the line.
Thank you, Seth, and thank you for all the attendees.